If you're an aspiring CFI, you've been a student in the past, and the learner's role in the training process is familiar to you. However, during your experiences as a student, you might not have thought about the methods your instructors used to convey information. Students often pass judgments on various aspects of their training without analyzing the reasons behind the success or failure of a particular learning experience.
Oh, great. I'm more confused about airspace after watching that video.
I learned so much today. I never thought I'd be able to land an airplane, but now I've got the hang of it.
What a lousy CFI. I had a hard time learning anything from him. My new instructor is much better.
Which instructional methods work and which don't? What techniques are best suited to particular subjects? How can material be presented in the most effective manner? These questions are answered best by examining teaching from a student's perspective. This program lets you step back into a student pilot's shoes, allowing you to take a more critical look at the art and science of teaching. Your private pilot ground school class is about to begin. Bob's your instructor.
Afternoon, everyone.
Hey, Bob. Hey, Bob.
Okay, so last time we covered airport facility directories and sectional charts. Today I'd like to discuss airspace. Scott, what were you telling me this morning? Something about Class D airspace around Jeffco?
Yeah, I went up yesterday to practice some maneuvers, and after finding a road to practice my S-turns on, I kind of forgot where I was, and I wandered into a Jeffco's Class D airspace.
Did you call the tower?
Yeah, they weren't happy about it either, but I think they understood what happened, and they're definitely glad I finally contacted them.
Oh yeah, you did the right thing. Thanks a lot for sharing your story. I didn't mean to put you on the spot like that.
That's all right.
But hopefully the things we cover today will help prevent some of those situations. Go ahead and take an outline and pass it on. We'll get started. Today we'll discuss all the types of airspace. We'll talk about controlled and uncontrolled airspace, weather minimums.
I didn't completely
and equipment
understand this
requirements.
stuff when I read the assignment. I'm glad we'll be going over it today.
Okay, so that's it for weather minimums and equipment requirements for both controlled and uncontrolled airspace. Are there any questions?
I have a question.
Okay.
Do you need Mode C transponder within Class A, B, and C airspace, within 30 miles of a Class B airport, and above Class C? And where else?
Whenever you're flying above 10,000 feet MSL, unless you're below 2,500 feet AGL. Okay, good. Are there any other questions? All right, let's break up into groups of 3 or 4. I'll pass out some sectionals. We'll go over a few examples.
So if you guys come over here, back.
All right, here's a scenario. You're flying south from Jeffco to Pueblo, on to Front Range, then back to Jeffco. Let's start at Jeffco. What are the basic VFR weather minimums needed to take off?
Well, without getting a special VFR clearance, I'd need a 1,000-foot ceiling and 3 miles visibility.
Correct. And what's the ceiling of Jeffco's Class D airspace?
It would be 8,000, actually 7,999 feet, since Denver's Class B airspace starts at 8,000.
Good.
Would we end up flying through Denver's airspace or around it?
Good question. What do you think would be best? All right, well, that's it for today. So, before I forget, some of you were asking about computer-based training. So I brought some flight maneuver CDs and some test prep software. If anyone wants to borrow some, just let me know. See you next week.
Good. I wanted to check out that maneuvers training CD. Hey, Bob.
Yeah.
I was wondering if one of those CDs has crosswind landings on it. I've been having problems with those lately.
Okay, let me see what I have. Here, there you go.
Oh, thanks.
Let me know how that works out for you. Say, by the way, did today's class clear up some of the confusion you had about airspace?
Yeah, going through those scenarios and listening to everyone's comments really helped answer my questions.
Good, glad it helped. Hopefully next week's class will help too.
Okay, see
you
ya.
then.
So do you have any more questions?
No, I think that's it.
Okay, great. Oh, hey, Lori.
Hey.
Hey, Mark. Hi, Kelly.
Okay, I'll see you next week then.
Okay, sounds good.
Great. So how was your class?
It was good. Bob answered a lot of questions I had about airspace.
Great. That'll help a lot with the cross countries we'll be planning later this week. So are you about ready to go?
Yeah, let me go get the weather briefing, and I'll go out in pre-flight, and I'll meet you back here.
Okay.
Think you're ready to try one?
Sure. I want to use full flaps, right?
Yeah. The idea is to land and stop in the shortest distance possible. Try to touch down so you can turn off at that first taxiway. Don't forget to keep an eye on your airspeed. We're a little low and slow. Try adding a little power.
Darn. There. That's better.
Good job for your first try.
I guess. I made the taxiway, but I was a little slow, and I think that's why the landing was so hard.
That's okay. You just need a little more practice, that's all. Much better. Let's see. Go ahead and taxi back, and I'll show you how to do a soft field takeoff.
Sounds good.
I'll demonstrate a soft field takeoff and landing, then see if you can talk me through the procedure before you try some yourself.
Okay.
Now, remember to hold the yoke all the way back to keep pressure off the nose wheel as we taxi onto the runway. Also, we want to keep the airplane moving, since we're simulating taking off from a grass field.
Before you finish your flight, let's take a look back at your day. You may be surprised at the number of teaching methods your instructors used in one afternoon.
Okay, so last time we covered airport facility directories and sectional charts. Today I'd like to discuss airspace.
Your instructors facilitate the teaching process by creating practical instructional sessions that are conducive to learning. The steps Bob followed to teach this class effectively were preparation, presentation, application, and review and evaluation. Of course, as a student, you never see the preparation phase. However, for an instructor, this is perhaps the most critical step. In order to measure how well his students understood the lecture, Bob wrote performance-based objectives prior to class. These objectives set measurable, reasonable standards that describe desired student performance. Bob organized his lesson by developing an introduction, instructional sequences that outline the material to be covered, and a conclusion. The introduction sets the stage for the rest of the lesson by relating the coverage of the material to the entire course.
Scott, what were you telling me this morning? Something about Class D airspace around Jeffco?
Yeah, I went up yesterday to practice some maneuvers, and after finding a road to...
By starting class with a story relating to airspace, Bob provided a real-world example of the importance of this lesson to your private pilot training. In addition, Bob got your attention, which helped you gain interest in the lesson.
Oh, yeah, you did the right thing. Thanks a lot for sharing your story. I didn't mean to put you on the spot like that. But hopefully the things we cover today will help prevent some of those situations.
Since you obviously don't want to make the same mistake Scott did, you are motivated to pay close attention to what Bob says. The motivation element offers specific reasons why the lesson content is important.
Go ahead and take an outline and pass it on. We'll get started. Today we'll discuss all the types of airspace. We'll talk about controlled and uncontrolled airspace, weather minimums, and equipment requirements.
Bob's brief overview of the lesson gave you an idea of what to expect from the class, and the outline he passed out provided a more detailed description. The introduction to every lesson should include an overview of the subjects to be covered during the period. After introducing the lesson, Bob presented the material in a structured way to provide a logical sequence for his students to follow and to ensure that all items were covered. Finally, Bob's conclusion reiterated the main points of the lesson and related them to the objective. Since each teaching situation is unique, The setting and purpose of the lesson determines the teaching method used. Lecture, cooperative learning, guided discussion, demonstration performance, telling and doing technique, integrated method of instruction, computer-based training, or a combination of two or more methods. The lecture is probably the most common teaching method used in ground schools. Lectures typically introduce new material, summarize ideas, show relationships between theory and practice, and re-emphasize main points within a course of study. There are many different types of lectures, such as the illustrated talk, the briefing, the formal lecture, and the teaching lecture. By encouraging his students' participation, Bob presented a teaching lecture in an informal manner.
All right, let's break up into groups of 3 or 4. I'll pass out some sectionals. We'll go over a few examples.
Cooperative or group learning is a teaching method that incorporates small groups of individuals who work together to maximize each other's learning. The guided discussion method is particularly useful during classroom instruction and during pre- and post-flight briefings after students have gained some knowledge and experience with the topic presented. In a guided discussion, learning is achieved through an instructor's skillful use of questions and includes elements similar to the cooperative learning method of teaching. The demonstration performance method is based on the principle that students learn by doing. This method is well suited for teaching skills such as cross-country planning or flight maneuvers. Remember your flight this afternoon? Mark explained how to do a short field landing. Then he demonstrated one, watched while you tried one, and finally, evaluated your performance. To apply the demonstration performance method to flight instruction, Mark used the telling and doing technique. This technique is particularly suited to teaching physical skills, so it's valuable when learning flight maneuvers and procedures.
Now, remember to hold the yoke all the way back to keep pressure off the nose wheel as we taxi onto the runway. Also, we want to keep the airplane moving since we're simulating taking off from a grass field.
The telling and doing technique begins with preparation prior to the lesson. During the lesson, Mark explained and demonstrated the soft field takeoff and landing techniques. After this, you explained the techniques while Mark flew. Then, you applied your knowledge as you talked through your actions while controlling the airplane. Finally, Mark reviewed the procedures and evaluated your performance.
Don't forget to keep an eye on your airspeed. We're a little low and slow. Try adding a little power.
Darn. There. That's better.
Mark uses the integrated method of flight instruction, which teaches students to reference outside visual cues as well as flight instruments while performing maneuvers. For example, during your lesson, Mark pointed out the relationship of the airspeed indicator to your outside reference. The integrated method includes instruction on the function of flight controls, the instrument indications to be expected, as well as the outside references used in attitude control. Using the integrated method typically allows all flight maneuvers and operations to be performed with added precision, not just those that require reference to flight instruments. Another instructing method available to CFIs is computer-based training, CBT, also referred to as computer-based instruction, CBI. The CBT Bob loaned you combines video, graphics, and interactivity to explore private pilot maneuvers. You are able to choose exactly what topic you want to examine and the pace at which you navigate the program. Since aviation training is wide-ranging and dynamic, entrusting an entire course to a computer program is not practical. So during computer-assisted instruction, CAI, the computer is used as a tool in combination with another form of instruction. Other forms of instruction can be pursued at your local airport through fixed base operators. Some FBOs offer instrument instruction in personal computer-based aviation training devices, PCATDs, or flight training devices, FTDs. This instruction can be credited toward the portion of time needed for an instrument rating. Major airlines have sophisticated flight simulators that are so realistic, transitioning pilots may meet all the qualifications needed to act as crew members by receiving all types specific aircraft time in the simulator alone. A few days after your class on airspace, you're at the airport bright and early for a ground school session on cross-country flight planning with Mark.
So, did you get a chance to watch that cross-country planning video?
Yeah, I had no idea there's so much to know.
Yeah, don't worry, we'll cover everything in detail. I was just hoping that video would at least give you an introduction into planning trips.
Oh, it did.
Good, good. Well, with my handy visual aid here, we can take a look at some of the basic concepts involved in cross-country flying. Suppose you want to pilot this boat across a river to this dock. If you try to go straight, you'll end up downstream because of the current that's coming from this direction. So what do you need to do to get the boat to the dock?
I need to turn into the current.
That's right, but let's think about the ways that you can do this. If you keep pointing the nose of the boat toward the dock, you'll end up traveling in an arc like this, which is pretty inefficient. Or you can point the nose into the current at an angle and you'll travel in a straight line like this. The key is trying to figure out which angle to use.
So this is essentially the same thing that happens to the airplane in wind during a cross-country.
Right, and we use a flight computer to figure out what wind correction angle to use. You can use a mechanical flight computer like this one, or an electronic flight computer. One of the advantages of this type of computer is that you can visualize where the wind is coming from and how it affects your flight path.
Looks like our time's almost up.
Yeah, I think we're done for today. Now that we've covered cross-country planning, you need to finish getting ready for your knowledge test. Have you gone over those lessons on that test prep software?
Yeah, in fact, the cross-country planning is the only part I haven't done yet, so I should be ready to schedule my computer test soon.
That's good. I'd like to do one more ground school session to review the planning before we schedule the dual cross-country.
Oh, I was hoping we could do the cross-country on Monday. I think I'm ready.
Yeah, you're close. I'd like you to go over these practice problems, and then we can talk about them. We went over a lot of things today, and I'd like to give you some time to absorb all this information. You'll get so much more out of the cross-country if you're completely comfortable and you don't have any questions.
Okay.
After we take a look at your work on the practice problems, then we'll go ahead and set up the flight.
All right.
Well, I have to go. I have another lesson.
I'm going to go get a cup of coffee and then work on some of these practice problems. See you next week.
Okay, see you then.
Well, I'm worried about doing a power-on stall. A friend of mine told me you can go into a spin on a stall.
As long as you keep the airplane coordinated with the rudder, just like a power-off stall, you won't have any problem. You want something to drink?
No, thank you.
Let's go sit down and talk about how to recover if the airplane does start to spin.
All right.
I was terrified of stalls since my first instructor was always nervous when we had to do them. Mark's confidence really helped me understand what was going on, and I felt much better.
These pretzels are making me thirsty. I'm going to grab a drink. Now, what did I say we were going to cover today?
GPS approaches.
Oops. I forgot to bring the handouts I was going to give you today. Maybe we better go over the ILS instead.
Well, we've already covered that. I guess it doesn't make any difference.
If I were Rick, I'd get another instructor.
Hey, Trevor, you didn't read what I told you, did you? You don't know any of this material.
Only had one night and you assigned 3 sections. I couldn't get through it all.
You know what? You'll learn a lot more if you read what I assign. You got something to say?
I'm sure glad James isn't my instructor. I'd be too upset to learn anything. I'd better go back and study.
Examining your cross-country planning session reveals how the proper use of instructional aids benefited both you and Mark.
So, did you get a chance to watch that cross-country planning video?
Yeah, I had no idea there's so much.
Your lesson actually began before you met with Mark. The video he assigned helped introduce you to the subject of cross-country flight. Video is just one of the many instructional aids that can supplement and enhance an instructor's presentation of material, either in or out of the classroom environment. Studies show measurable improvement in student retention of information occurs when instructional aids are used in conjunction with the presentation. Instructional aids include such items as chalk or marker boards, supplemental print material, enhanced training materials, projected material, video, DVD, and computer-based multimedia, as well as models, mock-ups, and cutaways. Instructional aids used in the teaching process should be compatible with the desired learning outcome. To determine if and what instructional aids were necessary for this lesson on cross-country planning, Mark had to clearly establish the lesson objectives, being certain what must be communicated. For example, he had two primary goals in mind when preparing for this lesson. For you to understand the concepts behind the various aspects of cross-country planning, and for you to be able to perform all the operations necessary to properly plan a flight. Instructional aids are often used to emphasize key points and increase retention of material. In addition to video, Mark used several other types of support materials as part of your lesson. The boat model and marker board definitely made an impression that will help you remember the concept of wind drift correction. While the model boat was used as a prop to add some interest to this lesson, other more elaborate models, mock-ups, and cutaways can be used effectively to explain the operating principles of the equipment they symbolize. Before you worked a weight and balance problem, Mark explained the concepts behind weight and balance using supplemental print material. In addition to photos, charts, diagrams, and graphs, supplemental print material can include items such as study guides, exercise books, course outlines, and syllabi. A syllabus is also an example of enhanced training material. This type of material helps keep track of student progress, outlines the tasks students are to perform, and includes the standards they must meet. Throughout your training with Mark, you've encountered a wide variety of instructional aids, including test preparation material and computer-based multimedia. In fact, the software you're using to prepare for your knowledge test is an example of both of these aids. By assigning test preparation materials, whether in video, DVD, computer-based, or print format, Mark is relieved of having to directly supervise as you study for your exam. This allows him to focus on the application of concepts. Although you're a well-prepared student who shows up on time and is eager to learn, you're not immune to experiencing some of the obstacles to learning.
Oh, I was hoping we could do the cross-country on Monday. I think I'm ready.
Yeah, you're close. I'd like you to go over these practice problems, and then we can talk about them. We went over a lot of things today, and I'd like to give you some time to absorb all this information.
Your impatience to schedule your first cross-country before you were fully prepared could be a greater deterrent to learning than you realize. Fortunately, Mark helped you understand what you need to accomplish to progress to the next stage of your training, and he clearly stated the goals you must meet. In addition to experiencing impatience, your own obstacle to learning, you also witnessed the difficulties of other students and instructors.
Well, I'm worried about doing a power on stall. A friend of mine told me you can go into a spin on a stall.
Anxiety is affecting Carla's ability to learn from her own perceptions and form the proper insights. She perceives stalls as dangerous, so it is up to Liz to provide an atmosphere that allows Carla to feel comfortable and confident about her lessons.
As long as you keep the airplane coordinated with the rudder, just like a power off stall, you won't have any problem. You want something to drink?
No, thank you.
Let's go sit down and talk about how to recover if the airplane does start to spin.
Now, what did I say we were going to cover today?
GPS approaches.
Oops. I forgot to bring the handouts I was going to give you today. Maybe we better go over the ILS instead.
Well, we've already covered that. I guess it doesn't make any difference.
Rick is apathetic about his training because George is seldom prepared for lessons.
You didn't read what I told you, did you? You don't know any of this material.
Only had one night and you assigned 3 sections. I couldn't get through it all.
The exchange between James and Trevor illustrates 2 more obstacles to learning. Although Trevor is determined to fly, his motivation has suffered immensely due to James's unreasonable demands for progress and performance. James's unfair treatment also has caused Trevor to become upset, further deteriorating his ability to learn. Whether they relate to the amount of study material assigned or to a student's performance during a lesson, objectives and completion standards should be challenging but attainable. Students should thoroughly understand the objectives of each step of their training, how well they are progressing, and what deficiencies need to be corrected. Next week is soon upon you. After another helpful ground session reviewing the practice cross-country problems, you're ready for the dual cross-country.
Items to tell you about, we'd appreciate any pilot reports on Flight Watch 122.0.
Thanks for your help.
Hey, how's it look?
Good VFR with light winds on the surface and aloft. It looks like a perfect day.
Great. And before you finish up your flight planning, I'd like to just quickly review what we're trying to accomplish on this cross-country. I've listed everything that we're going to cover during this lesson and the performance I'm looking for.
It looks like a lot.
It is, but for the most part, you're using skills that you already have, like VOR navigation to fly the cross-country. Plus, we'll stop and take a break down in Pueblo and regroup, answer any questions you might have, and go over the rest of the flight. Since you did so well with the dead reckoning on the way down here, I'd like to change our course a little on the way back and navigate just using VORs.
Sounds good. So we'll be tracking Victor Airways back to Centennial?
Yeah, exactly. Why don't we go grab a sandwich and talk about it? Yeah, cross countries give you a great idea of what fun you can have with a pilot certificate.
Yeah. There are so many places I'd love to fly once I pass my check ride, and I can't wait to take my family with me.
Sounds good. Where do you plan on going?
Oh, I think we'll probably go down to Orlando.
You did very well today.
Thanks.
Let's start at the beginning and go over each phase of the flight so we can discuss some things you did right and some areas you need to improve upon for when you do your solo cross country. I'd also like to hear how you think you did on certain things and if you have any questions.
Okay, sounds good.
Here's where we are on the syllabus. Once you finish the dual cross country, you'll do your solo cross countries, and then we'll get you ready for your check ride.
So I have to fly to the standards in the PTS for my check ride, right?
That's right, but you've performed to those standards on all the maneuvers up to this point, so you'll be okay. And plus, all the lessons leading up to your check ride will allow you to review everything that we've covered. That will ensure that your performance is consistent and that you feel confident. Other than the flight lessons, we'll schedule a couple ground lessons and go over everything that we've covered in your training. And then we'll go over anything that you may miss on your knowledge test.
I'm scheduled to take it next week.
That's great. One more thing, before your check ride, you'll do a final face check with Brad. He's one of our chief instructors here.
Okay.
Great.
You've completed a course of training when you pass your private pilot check ride. A course of training is a complete series of studies leading to attainment of a specific goal, like a pilot certificate. A related term, curriculum, is a set of courses in an area of specialization offered by an educational institution. A training course outline, TCO, within a curriculum establishes the content of a particular course. The TCO normally includes statements of objectives, descriptions of teaching aids, definitions of evaluating criteria, and indications of desired outcomes. When you first began pilot instruction, Mark established a goal for your training. To help achieve this goal, he referred to a syllabus and other training materials to create objectives and completion standards for individual lessons. After determining the objectives and completion standards, Mark identified the blocks of learning that constitute the necessary parts of the total objective. The use of the building block concept allows students to master portions of the overall pilot performance requirements individually, and then combine these with other related segments. For example, learning to get a briefing for local flights from flight service early in training made it easy for you to adapt this skill to obtain weather information for a cross-country flight. To make sure training is accomplished in a logical sequence and that all requirements are completed and properly documented, Mark used a syllabus. To be effective, a training syllabus should contain blocks of learning that should be completed in the most efficient order. A good syllabus should define the unit of training, describe the objective the student is expected to accomplish, show an organized plan for instruction, and provide for regular evaluations at prescribed stages. Each lesson in a training syllabus should include at least 3 main elements: objectives, content, and completion standards. Mark used these elements when he encouraged you to refer to the syllabus to help keep track of your progress and to let you know what to expect next. He also understood that a syllabus must be flexible, and when necessary, he altered the course of training to suit your progress and the demands of special circumstances.
Here's where we are on the syllabus. Once you finish the dual cross-country, you'll do your solo cross-countries, and then we'll get you ready for your check ride.
Mark uses a commercially published syllabus in conjunction with lesson plans that he develops on his own. A lesson plan is an organized outline for a single instructional period. The format of lesson plans can vary as long as objectives, content to support those objectives, and the completion standards are included. A well-designed lesson plan contains new material that is related to previous lessons. It should provide a foundation for organizing explanations and demonstrations to help students achieve the desired learning outcomes, as well as be reasonable in scope and length. Lessons also must be flexible to accommodate changing circumstances, such as weather or a student's performance.
Since you did so well with the dead reckoning on the way down here, I'd like to change our course a little on the way back and navigate just using VORs.
Lessons should be planned and executed with a positive approach in mind. Mark knows that emphasizing the positive aspects of aviation helps students have a more enjoyable training experience.
And cross countries give you a great idea of what fun you can have with a pilot certificate.
In addition, when students are able to see the benefits or purpose of a lesson, they will be more motivated.
And plus, all the lessons leading up to your check ride will allow you to review everything that we've covered. That will ensure that your performance is consistent and that you feel confident. You did very well today.
Thanks.
Let's start at the beginning.
Mark planned to critique your performance by following the sequence of events that occurred during the lesson. Mark understands that for his critiques to be effective, they typically exhibit certain characteristics, such as being organized. In addition, critiques should be objective, comprehensive, constructive, specific, and acceptable to the student. Mark also is thoughtful of his students' feelings, and his critiques are flexible enough to adapt to the requirements of the moment. For example, it can be counterproductive to belabor minor errors when a student is already upset with poor performance. In addition to providing critiques, Mark must also evaluate your performance. Critiques are used to summarize and complete lessons, as well as to prepare for the next lesson. Evaluations measure demonstrated performance against a criteria or standard. For example, Mark evaluated your performance today based on the objectives he established in the lesson plan. On top of observing your performance on particular tasks, Mark evaluated your understanding of topics by oral quizzing and written tests. Performance tests, such as the stage check you will be taking with Brad, evaluate training that involves an operation, procedure, or process. Flying with Brad not only assesses your skills, but also evaluates Mark's performance as an instructor. How well you do during this stage check can be a direct reflection on how well Mark has prepared you for your check ride. Speaking of your check ride, you'll be happy to know that you passed it with flying colors. You decide to attend the club party to celebrate. You've survived your trip back to the heady days of a student pilot. Along the way, you were able to experience several teaching methods from a student's perspective and then analyze their effectiveness. You were exposed to a wide variety of instructional aids that enhance learning. And you witnessed some obstacles to learning. You gained insight into the tools, such as syllabi and lesson plans, that instructors use to create lessons. And you got a look at the methods used by CFIs to critique and evaluate their students. The ability to place yourself in the position of a student should serve you well when you become an instructor. You'll have a greater understanding of the teaching methods that work, and your students will benefit from your insight.